like clouds and wind without rain. Proverbs 25:14 captures a stage most people do not recognize until damage spreads. You are still talking. They are still replying. The exchange appears intact, but the effort behind the words is gone. Attention has thinned. Investment has retreated. What remains is motion without nourishment. Scripture describes this as atmospheric activity that produces nothing. It looks like connection. It functions like drought. Conversation can continue even after engagement has ended. Messages are answered on time. Meetings are attended. Calls are returned. Nothing appears broken from the outside, yet something essential has withdrawn. The tone becomes efficient but not invested. Questions are asked without waiting for real answers. Responses contain words but not weight. Proverbs 25:14 compares this to clouds and wind without rain. There is visible movement, but nothing nourishes the ground. In modern exchanges, this dryness shows up as acknowledgement without curiosity. People respond to avoid friction, not to move understanding forward. They mirror language without absorbing meaning. Presence remains steady, but contribution thins. The energy that once carried disagreement, clarification, and correction no longer enters the room. What replaces it is procedural speech, statements that maintain structure without deepening connection. Engagement shifts from involvement to maintenance. Just enough effort to prevent collapse, just enough agreement to avoid tension. This stage is dangerous because it produces no alarms. There is no argument to point at, no silence dramatic enough to confront, only steady activity that disguises retreat. Over time, the exchange continues, but growth stops. The sky stays busy, the ground stays dry. This pattern is not new. Groups have always reached a stage where conversation continues while commitment fades. Proverbs 25:14 described clouds and wind without rain long before digital replies or institutional meetings existed. The imagery assumes motion that promises outcome. It exposes activity that delivers nothing. In ancient courts, advisors still gathered around kings. Reports were presented, speeches were given. Yet beneath the formality, conviction had thinned. Words circulated, but responsibility retreated. No one declared withdrawal. No decree announced disengagement. The structure remained impressive. The exchange looked alive. Over time, challenges softened into suggestions. Suggestions softened into observations. Observations faded into polite acknowledgement. The group adjusted without admitting it. Depth became inconvenient. Directness felt unnecessary. Members learned to conserve effort while preserving appearance. They spoke to maintain position, not to move truth forward. This gradual thinning required no conspiracy. It required repetition. Each unproductive exchange lowered expectations slightly. Each lowered expectation reduced future effort. The pattern sustained itself. From a distance, the institution appeared stable. Internally, it relied on motion without nourishment. Clouds gathered, wind shifted, the ground waited. Nothing came. Proverbs 25:14 does not exaggerate this condition. Clouds and wind are visible signals of expectation. Movement suggests delivery. Noise suggests outcome. Yet no rain follows. The proverb assumes disappointment that repeats often enough to become pattern. It does not describe open conflict or betrayal. It describes appearance without fulfillment. Clouds are not storms. Wind is not destruction. Both imply change. Both imply approach. Still, nothing nourishes the soil. Scripture records this as a warning sign that vitality has already withdrawn while structure remains. The sky looks active. The horizon looks promising. Observers continue waiting for impact. Meanwhile, the ground begins to crack quietly. The proverb does not condemn speech. It exposes speech detached from contribution. It does not attack presence. It reveals presence emptied of delivery. Once this stage settles in, people adjust to lower expectations. They learn not to rely on what sounds impressive. They stop preparing for rain. The exchange continues, but trust thins. When engagement thins repeatedly, people begin adjusting internally before they admit it externally. They stop expecting depth from the exchange. Questions become safer. Curiosity narrows to what will not be ignored. Proverbs 25:14 describes clouds and wind that train the ground to anticipate rain. When rain fails to arrive often enough, expectation weakens first. The soil does not protest, it hardens quietly. In conversation, the same hardening takes place. Participants match the energy they receive. They lower effort to prevent disappointment. Attention becomes measured. Vulnerability becomes rare. What once required courage now feels wasteful. People begin editing themselves before speaking. They offer partial thoughts instead of developed ones. Over time, they detach from outcomes. Whether something changes or not no longer feels personal. This detachment protects them from frustration. It also reduces investment. Creativity declines because creativity requires belief that response matters. Correction disappears because correction requires shared stake. Insight becomes infrequent because insight demands effort from both sides. The exchange continues, but nourishment stops. Eventually, participants forget what full engagement felt like. Activity replaces vitality. Motion replaces meaning. The sky remains active. The ground learns to survive without rain. As this condition spreads, the exchange becomes increasingly efficient and increasingly hollow. People learn exactly how much effort is required to appear engaged. They refine their tone and perfect their timing. Proverbs 25:14 lingers here because clouds and wind can look dramatic without delivering rain. Movement distracts from absence. Polished language distracts from missing investment. Meetings grow smoother while becoming less consequential. Conversations grow calmer while producing fewer outcomes. Participants sense the decline but struggle to name it. There is no clear offense to confront, no visible rupture to repair, only a steady reduction in weight. Over time, minimal engagement becomes the accepted norm. Those who bring intensity feel out of place. Depth feels excessive in a room trained for surface exchange. Directness feels disruptive in a system calibrated for maintenance. New participants adapt quickly because they encounter no resistance. They learn the rhythm of response without the burden of contribution. The structure remains active. The language remains steady. The expectations shrink quietly. Everyone is present. Almost no one is invested. The sky stays busy. The ground stays unchanged. At this stage, the danger is no longer relational tension. It is normalization. What once felt disappointing now feels standard. Proverbs 25:14 shifts from image to diagnosis. Clouds gather. Wind moves. Expectation no longer rises with them. In conversation, this appears as lowered anticipation before a word is spoken. Participants enter exchanges assuming little will change. They prepare responses, not contributions. The absence of nourishment stops registering as loss. Over time, dissatisfaction dulls into indifference. People detach from frustration by reducing desire itself. They persuade themselves that depth was unnecessary. They redefine minimal effort as efficiency. The exchange survives by shrinking what it promises. This quiet recalibration spreads without discussion. No one votes for it. No one announces it. It settles through repetition. Once expectation collapses, restoration becomes unlikely. Energy no longer gathers in the room. It circulates without direction. Politeness replaces investment. Structure replaces vitality. Everyone is reachable. Almost nothing meaningful advances. The sky continues its movement. The ground stops preparing for rain. Eventually, the exchange becomes stable in its emptiness. Conversation continues without resistance. Replies arrive without weight. Proverbs 25:14 no longer feels poetic. It feels ordinary. Clouds pass overhead. Wind moves across the sky. No one looks up expecting rain. Participants maintain contact out of habit. They remain reachable, but unavailable. The structure holds because it requires little from anyone. What once carried growth now carries routine.
Over time, memory fades. People forget what engaged conversation felt like. They stop measuring nourishment because drought feels normal. This is the quiet end of engagement, not conflict, not silence, not departure, only motion without delivery. The sky remains active, the ground adapts to dryness, and those standing under it no longer remember that rain was ever supposed to fall.